Let's move on to some not so great news I have next here on the roster. Sony cancels two more PlayStation projects in a broader retreat. And it's a little bit unfortunate, but we have two games out of Ben Studios in Oregon and out of Blue Point in Texas. So both live service games have been reportedly discontinued, and now those studios will be working on other things. Kind of sad because we haven't really seen anything from Bend in a long time, and kind of sucks if they have to start all over again. And Blue Point obviously hasn't done very much since their previous thing. So, a little bit frustrating, but my theory on this is since we've had this CEO transition, there's obviously different directions in the future of PlayStation, and somebody got a hold of the marketing place and said live service is not the way to go. So hopefully that's what this is all reflecting, and they're changing to more of those experiences that bring emotions and excitement and innovate on gameplay.
That's the hope. In the immediate aftermath, we are getting less games from PlayStation first-party studios over the course of this generation. Bend have been working on... Are Bend the ones who were doing the God of War multiplayer game, live service game?
Yeah, that's what it was rumored to be. Yeah, God of War
Yeah.
live service, some crazy like that.
So I have so many issues with all of those words coming together in a singular sentence. Like, just shoot me now sort of thing is how I feel about that one. It's terrible. God of War has built its reputation on being an excellent single-player, narratively driven experience. They've had multiplayer before, and it was a very good multiplayer in God of War Ascension. I actually really enjoyed that and do miss playing that, but that was a one-off, not a permanent, everlasting thing. And I think what we're seeing is the heads of PlayStation Studios recognizing the folly of their ways. Because Herman Holst was in position and was greenlighting a lot of these projects before Jim Ryan retired. So he has a lot of experience and a lot to answer for in pushing so many live service games onto PlayStation. Some of them could work beautifully. I do think Fair Games could be really good. I want Fair Games to be really good when that comes. The studio making it have made some of my favorite experiences in the past, and I hope they just bring that quality to the new title. And if that takes off, if that hits the right audience, similar to what Helldivers 2 did last year, we could see a really good little bit of a cash cow type idea for Sony and the rest of the PlayStation studios. But when you see flop after flop, and when you see cancelled project after cancelled project, because it's not taking shape, it's not making what they think will be good, it's a lot of wasted time for these studios, which then, of course, puts them at risk. As you say, Bend have not released anything since Days Gone, and that was a 2018 game. So we are now 7 years later, and they've not released a new title. At some point, they need an influx of money. They need to release a game to get some money coming in, because I don't know about you, but I can't go 7 years without getting a paycheck. So I can't imagine a studio can do similar. Blue Point, they are the masters of the remake and the upgrade. I'm a bit disappointed that their game isn't going to come out. I wanted to see what their quality was on it. But again, if it's a live service game, you're asking a lot of buy-in on that. And we are seeing, even with the encumbered masters of the live service title, just player drop-off to extreme degrees. We're seeing Destiny 2 with sub 20,000 players on Steam, for example. We're seeing Apex be talked about, is that still running? We're seeing World of Warcraft doing more and more to try and drag people back in, get them to put their subscriptions back in place, because people are just walking away. They've had enough. They've had their fill. And there's a lot of folk walking back to these experiences that PlayStation were really, really good at creating in the last generation. And maybe Herman Holst has started to see that and has started to realize, let's put our expertise where our expertise are and make these games that people want. Okay, we're going to have a bigger weight. we know we're going to have a bigger weight from a lot of these studios, and I hope that they don't close down. I hope they don't go the same way that the Concord studio did. But worrying times that these things have been cancelled and there isn't money coming into these studios, but positive on the front of maybe the leadership is finally realizing that PlayStation gamers don't want live service. We want narrative-driven experiences. It can be in any genre you want, but give us a strong, narratively driven experience.
Absolutely, but if you're worried about Bend Studios, they put out a public statement letting everyone know Days Gone development says it still plans to create cool shit for the PS5 after the live service cancellation. So, just in case you were worried, that Bend Studio did put out an announcement saying they're making cool shit. So, that's what it is, believe it or not. I hope they have something in their back pocket ready to go, because it, like you said, 7 years. Moving on,
They've got the fallback of siphon filter if needs be. They could always knock out a quick siphon filter, like mini games similar to the size of Miles Morales. There's stuff that these guys can do in quick turnarounds. Maybe even as Jem is saying, remaster Days Gone now that it's got that bit of a cult following. So there's options.
Yeah,
options.
It needs a PS5 version, but it would just feel empty. I don't know, but
hey, it's something Shuhei Yoshida said recently, and I know we're probably going to talk about Shuhei at some point today because he had this massive interview with Kinda Funny Games. But he said, if you want new games from these companies, buy into the remasters because that is how they fund the new games. So if people want more Days Gone, buy a remaster of Days Gone if they do it. That's how these things are going to get made.
Yeah. Well, let's go over. So there was an announcement made that there was going to be, in 2022, Sony announced it had 12 live service projects in the hopper. Well, I have a bit of a summary here on where we are with those 12 games. So we have Last of Us multiplayer canceled in December. We have Marvel's Spider-Man The Great Web canceled in 2023. We have London Studios live service game closed up in February 2024. Twisted Metal was also canceled in 2024. Helldivers 2, the only shining light in their portfolio, was released in 2024. Payback from Project Bungie also canceled. Concord, I don't need to say anymore. That thing was a train wreck. Bend Studios canceled. Blue Point canceled. Just talk about that. Fair Games, the Canadian live service, Jade Raymond, almost was a Stadia game. I hope this does well. It was announced in 2023. We haven't heard very much from it. My fingers are crossed that it does come out and it does do something different. So there's still that to hope for, but let's face it. Marathon, announced in 2023, still in production, and the Horizon Online game, which is rumored to be canceled, but now it's rumored to not be canceled. So there's that. That's where we're at. I think they've had multiple 9 cancellations here, with like 3 projects maybe still happening, 4. So crazy times of this 12 live service project. It just seems to have crashed and burned, in my opinion.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This is how things get made. It's how movies get made. It's how television shows get made. It's how my YouTube videos get made. I will start ideas. I will start writing a script, film some footage, not like what I'm doing and completely scrap it, start something new. And that's how a lot of creativity happens. I think the problem with this is that Jim Ryan and PlayStation as a whole announced that there were 12 live service games coming before 2025. And they announced this in 2022. So in 3 years, we would get 12 live service games. As anybody who has jumped on the bandwagon of a live service game, who has played one for an extended period, you only really have space in your life as a player for one live service game. Mine has, for the past decade, been Destiny. That has been my live service game. I've dipped into Fortnite. I've tried Apex Legends. I've tried Call of Duty Warzone. But I don't have the time of day to put the effort in to get the equipment, to get the skills, to get good at that, whilst also playing the one that actually matters to me, that actually entices me in. And it's the same for players of any of these live service games. You ask a Warframe player who's been playing it since the launch of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, what other live service games they've played. They haven't. They've played Warframe. That's it. So to put 12 of these out in the space of 3 years was always going to be a massive challenge. To have 12 ideas bouncing around internally, to have these start to get built out, storyboarded, concepted, and what have you, not a bad thing. It's how creativity happens, and it's how some of the best games that we have now actually started life. They started as something completely different. The problem was it was announced to the public that this is what's happening. And it was obvious to anybody with a small modicum of common sense or half an eye on the industry as a whole that you can't have 12 live service games and all of them be successful. You'd be lucky if one of them is. They've had Helldivers, which is great. Helldivers is still going strong. It's still pulling people in, pulling people back in on a regular basis. Even if people haven't continued to play it after purchasing it and putting 20, 30 hours in, they've still bought the game. They've got the money for it. This is just a state of mismanagement, and I think it's showing the mismanagement that was going on in 2022. Why that was happening, how that was happening, especially after the success of the decade prior, is anybody's guess. I don't have any inside information to explain that one. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs because we are in a situation where 9 of these games have been cancelled. 2 or 3 of the studios have been closed, and we are no closer to getting games from many more of the studios on this list. So yeah, sad times for PlayStation Studios, but hopefully the change of tack will be much better for the future of PlayStation and us players.
I mean, on a time schedule where you, as a company, release 4 games a year, 1 per quarter, losing 8 games is a big hit. So, I just feel like our
content gone. Yeah,
feel like our portfolio suffered as PlayStation 5 gamers here a bit. But like you said, new CEO direction. We can only move forward. So let's get these studios creating some good stuff again.